I'm Dr. Paul from drpaul.net, and welcome to The Seventh Sense, How to Become an Omega Male in Dating and Relationships. This material that you're going to be exposed to is going to be based on Dating OS, the operating system of the human mind in dating and relationships, which I developed over the past 12 years or so. And we're going to be covering various new concepts that I haven't released to the public in any other form. The foremost of which is the concept of developing a seventh sense for yourself and becoming what I would term an Omega male. What do I mean by having a seventh sense? Has anyone ever heard of The Sixth Sense, the film? Usually when, pardon? A gut feeling? Yes. Usually when people say, they have a sixth sense about that, they're talking about an intuition, a gut feeling, that sort of thing. Something that's knowledge that's unexplainable and yet somehow a little bit accurate. What I want you to learn to develop for yourself over this weekend is what I'm calling a seventh sense, okay? This is not just going to be a gut feeling about things. It's going to be a gut feeling plus absolute certainty of why you have the gut feeling, okay? We're going to explain psychology of sexuality, dating, and relationships so deeply for you that you're going to not only get an intuition about your relations with women, but you're going to know why you're getting that intuition too. Okay? And I'm calling that a seventh sense. Now, a lot of you guys have been trained to develop skills, right? A lot of other teachers talk about developing a skill set. It's important to have a skill set. Well, what's the difference between a skill set and having a sense? Anybody? Well, a skill set is just sort of memorizing techniques or memorizing lines. When you learn a skill of, say, playing tennis, you're learning certain motions you have to do, and if you repeat them over and over and over again, you'll get pretty good at doing those same things over and over. But a sense is something very different from a skill set. It's something that has become part of you. It's integrated into your hard wiring. And not only that, it gathers data for you and helps inform you. Okay? A skill set doesn't help inform you about anything. It's kind of a mindless thing, whereas a sense is something much deeper. Okay? And that's what we're going for here. This material, have to give you the notice on this. This material is patent pending 2005, Dr. Paul and Mystery Industries. All rights reserved. It's not okay to copy text or diagrams or any of this material in any form or re-engineer it or rename it. That's all what a patent means. This is for your personal use only. So by being here, you're licensing this for your personal use. Or by listening to this, you are licensing this material only for your personal use. I want you to think about what a breakthrough would be for you. You all need to have some kind of breakthrough this weekend. It could be enormous, or it could be small and progressive and something you can build on. But every seminar we've had, every guy has had some major change for himself. You're especially going to see that demonstrated when we do EMDR on day 3. So what is your breakthrough? I'd like you to think about this just for a few minutes and maybe write this down in your notebook. It might not be what you thought it was after you learned my system. What would make this weekend a breakthrough for you personally, whether it's what you think you need or what I pick up on in your skills? And what are you willing to do to have it happen? Can you put yourself out there, both in class and in the field? Okay, because the more you do, the more you're going to get. Any very shy guys here? Shy to speak up in class, or at least shy out in the field approaching women? Okay, the more you're willing to put yourself out there, the more you're going to get out of this. Let me explain a little bit to you about where this material came from. About 10 or more years ago, I developed a new method of teaching psychology to people through simple terms and diagrams. And since a picture's worth 1,000 words, it became quickly obvious to me that this advance was going to change the whole way people literally view psychology and relationships. And because it explains all of psychology and plugs into nearly any kind of human problem I applied it to, I trademarked it as MindOS, the operating system of the human mind. And just like a computer needs an operating system to run software, your mind is a computer, and it has an operating system of its own. The system of diagrams can revolutionize your life and make you more efficient at getting to all your goals happily, including any goal in dating and relationships. So MindOS is running underneath everything I'm about to teach you. And you're soon going to find that the power of a few minutes of these diagrams that I give you is worth 1,000 hours of therapy. And you'll soon be carrying them around in your wallet. I also want you to know that stories are another kind of picture. They explain psychology, especially in the kind of literature that's called mythology. Ancient stories would not and could not go on being told for thousands of years if there were not some deep truth in them that's common to all men and women ever born. Think about this if you want to understand the opposite sex. So there's going to be a lot of stories that I give you during this weekend. And some of them will be read by me, some of them will be short snippets of film. But a story is a symbol, it's symbolic. And it's a right-brained notion. And as such, what it does is it gives you millions of bits of data all in one brief period of time. So it's a very efficient way to teach. Now, stories don't explain to us in practical detail how to go about communicating to and dating the opposite sex, but science does for the nitty-gritty detail work of the overall relations between us. Now, there are many scientists out there who take the slow course of research, working away at some small part of the overall picture of what human psychology is, and we couldn't do without them. I used to be one of those academics. But I realized that to completely explain to men and women how relationships work, I'd need to develop a system that is not just about a tiny part of relationships. It would have to be all-inclusive, okay, covering everything from first meeting to walking down the aisle, if that's what you're after. So I want you to think about a concept about what is instinct. Your knowledge of animal instincts for attraction is what gets the first few hours of interest from a woman. But it's your character. That's the very thing that absolutely keeps them glued to you, maybe even for life. So has any guy had a really great evening meeting a woman for the first time, maybe having conversation for a few hours even, and then maybe had a first date, and it was a pretty great date in your mind, but then nothing after that, and it could not be explained? Okay. Well, in that particular instance, what you did was you did great in that particular case with sexual attraction. So even though we thought for you, originally you're coming here thinking you need more sexual attraction skills, you probably did a good job for the first 8 hours or so of knowing the woman, but maybe something was going on with your character or how genuine you were coming across to her so that it didn't continue. To have a durable period of dating with a woman, that's all character. Okay? Sexual attraction needs to be in place, but character is what keeps it going. Now on the flip side, the instincts of a Ms. Right or Mr. Right are what attract people to each other in the first place. Character keeps them glued in an ongoing relationship. But when character is misread by you, you're absolutely going to find later on that you're a poor match you get into an unhappy, unconfident, or even abusive, codependent position with the woman. And you're going to end up smacking yourself in the forehead and saying, what was I thinking? Okay, but it's going to seem too late. So anybody connect with that concept? That you rushed into something. You didn't think you were rushing, but it was like, well, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's friendly, I like what she does for a career. It's on. It's great. You ever had that happen? Well, those kinds of ways of selecting the woman are pretty crude. To just say it's, her career is good, she's good looking, and she's friendly. You're in for trouble that way, because there are all kinds of women out there and all levels of maturity in them. So you've already invested so much of your time, energy, loyalty, and devotion only to find what you saw in the first few minutes was not at all what you got in the end. So would you be interested in a few simple but surgically accurate tips on how to read someone for character quality in the first seconds of meeting them, before investing time and energy that ends up in breakup or divorce years later? Anybody? Okay, good. As it turns out, you're going to find in the days that follow that it's impossible to control a person. And we talked a little bit about this as we were getting introduced to each other. You can't control a woman. No other human being can be controlled. Whatever you're taught by other teachers, how their methods are flawless and you can get any woman you want, is just plain not true. And if you were like me and went out with them regularly, you would see them fail regularly, as I do, and as I have done when I have been unattached. It's not about being the man that can get every woman. It's about being the man who can feel really great about himself and great about getting what he wants and needs. So it's an illusion to think you can control people. But it is possible to control yourself in a way that absolutely, positively, efficiently, effectively brings the right kind of woman into your life for now and for good. If you're interested in that, I'm going to give that exact technology to you. We tend to attract the opposite sex in a way that nearly matches our own maturity level or character development. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever been with a woman that you couldn't believe how immature she was, and you stuck with her? It's because we attract people of similar maturity level, believe it or not. And most of the time we can't see our own maturity level. If attraction is triggered by pushing the buttons of the animal side of human nature, of instinct, and durable relationships are produced by high character, then what are you to do? Well, there is something you can do. You can build your skills at reading the animal side of human behavior and change your character also. Okay, and that's much of what it means to be an omega male. It's that you're able to read instincts and be aware of your own instincts and not let them take everything over, not become impulsive and unconscious, but also to have high character running things. So you're going to have a responsibility this weekend, and you only have one responsibility. Everything else is pretty much planned and taken care of for you. You need to speak up and act up in favor of yourself. Okay, not me or any of the coaches are going to live your life for you or force you to approach women or communicate with women. Although at the last seminar, one coach did try to force you. That's not going to happen this time, though, because he's not with us anymore. If you have a what question, I want you to ask it. If you have a why question, I want you to ask it. If you have a how question, I want you to ask it. And if you have a what if question, I want you to ask it. Different guys have different ways of learning, okay? So you're going to be responsible for your own way of learning and let me know what you need so that we can provide it. We're going to be using technical knowledge, story knowledge, verbal and visual learning, such as film and TV examples, every possible method. And the last ingredient has got to be your championing of yourself and your distaste for passiveness. Yes, microphone.
Why is this so...
Yep.
Okay. Why is this so frustrating right now? For me, I'm feeling I'm frustrated with just the fact that I'd never understood this. And I guess...
you mean,
like you said,
something I just said struck you?
Yeah, well,
new?
yeah, like just sitting through the entire last couple of slides of, the picking the wrong woman, knowing that it's going to fail. It's all just frustrating.
Well, it's going to make sense to you. I'll tell you right now that the bird's eye view of this whole system has to do with 3 functional areas of the brain. Okay, not exact anatomy, but 3 what evolutionary psychologists call modules.
Okay.
That means sort of like a device on your computer. Okay, like your audio for your computer or your video for your computer. There's 3 major areas of the brain. Some people talk about that very crude theory from the 50s and 60s called the triune brain theory. And that really was the beginning of what, in the past 10 years or so, has begun a new school of psychology called evolutionary psychology. And the 3 brains are the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and the higher brain. Well, your reptilian brain is the unconscious. What's contained in it is the unconscious and animal instinct.
Okay.
All kinds of things like competition, sexual response, flirting, things like that they're not logical. You've heard another teacher, a guru, always use some phrase like attraction is illogical. Right. Something like that.
Right.
Well, yeah, obviously, he's right. Attraction is in the reptilian brain. It's instinct, not logic. Okay? So the reason you're frustrated is because you've been unconscious about this subject maybe all your life. And that's okay. Your brain was still trying, but it was the unconscious part of your brain that was trying. And if you can become more learned and conscious about how your reptilian brain, your brainstem, your instincts, your unconscious works, you're going to be able to not make it go away and not replace it with something else, but you're going to be able to work with it and channel it toward your ends, toward what benefits you.
And so basically the last slide they talked about maturity level.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Maturity level
that's basically
is in the higher brain.
Right.
Okay, there's 3 levels of the brain. There's the reptilian brain,
mm-hmm.
which has instinct in it. There's the mammalian brain, which controls all emotion. And as I'm going to explain, friendship exists only in the mammalian brain. And then there's the higher brain. And that's where you have all the features of civility and politics and diplomacy and high character. That's in your higher brain. So what's been going on is you've been an animal and not a very effective animal, okay? So when all these teachers, give you material about sexual attraction, they're only teaching you about the animal level of it and making you more aware of how it works so you can be a more effective animal, or what they call an alpha male. Okay? The term alpha male refers to the animal kingdom. And we're not. We're something more than that, I hope. So you need to learn to be not just an alpha male, good at animal instinct, but also good at everything else that's human. Okay? Maybe that was more than you bargained for. So your world and your power over your life are about to permanently change for the better. And it's my hope that the material that's to follow will be all you ever need for a life of success and joy in dating, love, and rewarding relationships. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay, good. Trying to give. All right, core concept. You have to decide to live. You have to decide to live. Passiveness is the enemy of your growth. This is one of the core diagrams that I use in a lot of my technology. Anybody have a thought on what the definition of life is? You may have encountered some of this before in other programs of mine. Yeah, scientists define life as irritable, meaning the environment does stuff to us and we do stuff back on purpose. Okay? That makes us conscious instead of unconscious animals that only run on instinct. Okay? So if a living thing is irritable, then a decision has been made, which means that if you are very passive and don't make a lot of decisions in your life, then in a philosophical sense, you're a little less alive. If you look at the bottom of my diagram here, things like depression, what psychiatrists call regression, or becoming less mature, and further decline, and even death, things like suicide and homicide would be at the bottom of this diagram. The less decisions you make, the less alive you are. You might say mental illness is way down low on this diagram too. And if you think about people you may have known who have been depressed or maybe substance abusing, there's a lot to that that's about not making decisions. A depressed person becomes more and more passive the more depressed they get. Okay? Or an alcoholic becomes less and less alive and more passive the more into that illness they get. Because what ends up happening is the substance starts making the decisions for them, okay, instead of them being in control. But the more decisions you make, the more you grow. And what matters is simply making any decision at first, especially when you're young. When you're going through your adolescent years, you make a ton of mistakes if you're willing to, but it still makes you grow, even if you make mistakes. A lot of patients that I see will tell me, I need to make the right decision. It's got to be right. And a lot of you guys probably find yourselves up against this in approaching women. Like, you see a woman who's physically appealing to you, and you're like, well, she sure is hot. I think I might like to talk to her, but it's just not quite right yet. It's not quite right. I'm gonna wait until she moves over there, or I'm gonna wait until that guy goes away. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, too well. So you're waiting for the perfect circumstances, and they're never going to come. Okay, your error is simply that you didn't just go and deal with what's going on there. Make a decision, it makes you grow. And even if the woman slapped you or yelled at you, I could tell you a good story later that I recently experienced. Not that I got slapped, but a very rude woman I ran into. Even if things end up destructive, that's okay because you still learn from it. And you're more masculine for having done something than doing nothing. Another thing people often talk to me about is ambivalence. Like they might be willing to make a decision, but they're between, quote, rock and a hard place. Or, it's two evils to choose between, right? And so they're not making a decision because they're ambivalent. Neither option seems appealing. And they say, well, what's the cure? What's the cure for ambivalence? I can't decide because I don't want either of these things. Well, the cure is you just decide. If you have to be random about it, just choose one and go with it. And then you'll have to pass through it if it's an unappealing decision. Microphone. Sorry. We want to immortalize you on audio.
I was reading Stewart Wild's book, Silent Powers.
Silent power, yeah.
He said that if you are not sure about a decision, and if you have to choose, maybe you don't make a decision at that time and postpone it until you are able to.
Okay, how long have you been postponing?
Well, I did it for a long time. I just read his book now, and I know my problem was not making decisions. But when we were talking about ambivalence, or there are two perfect choices and you have difficulty to choose and make a decision, or both the choices are not perfect,
Right.
maybe not to make a decision at that time. Is that okay?
Well, maybe it depends on the circumstances. I mean, if you're in a business meeting and you're very, very angry, maybe that's not the time to decide to vent your anger. It depends on the context of the situation, but to make a generalization that if there are two difficult options to choose from, maybe you should just wait, I wholeheartedly disagree with. Why? Because you're wasting time. So many men I know have waited their whole life, waited to be fathered. Well, dad isn't coming along. Yeah, it may take courage, but a decision is just a decision. You don't have to go find something or borrow something to make one. Why? Because the definition of life to biologists is it makes decisions. If you're alive and breathing, you're capable of making a decision. Okay? So maybe what that author is saying would give people an excuse to remain passive. So I don't necessarily like that idea. Yeah. Any thoughts at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This just reminds me of a situation I'm in right now, which is my whole building in the city, in New York City, is being kicked out. They bought the building and they're converting it to condos. And it's like the perfect place for me. It's right across the street from my work. It's at the perfect price that I'm renting this apartment. And basically I have to be out by September 30th. And I've been just in this passive, scared place where I've been half-assed looking for an apartment instead of just making the decision because it's out of my control at this point, and taking the proactive step towards it. So just remind me of
Well, I hear you. I was once in the same situation. I found a fantastic place in downtown Denver that I had rented, and they didn't warn me ahead of time that 4 months later they were going to sell it. I thought I was going to get it for a year, and they said, well, just ride out the rest of the former guy's lease, and then we'll sign a new one. And then it's like you move all your stuff. You know, you exhaust your buddies helping you move like 3 times in 1 year. You know.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying, and what that speaks to is something we're going to learn a lot about on day 3, boundaries. Your boundary marks what you control from what you don't control. And most of life we don't control at all. So what that leaves us with is the decision between trying to force things to go our way, which they never will, or become more adaptable. Okay? Now here's another reason why that guy that teaches men about being humorous, confident, can be somewhat useful, because by teaching men to be more magician-like, magicians are the most adaptable personality type, because your right brain makes you adaptable. Instead of forcing things to be row on row logical in your life, when you're a magician or you have good right brain ability, you're able to flex around obstacles in your path. So that's what we all have to learn eventually. Whether you're a king or a lover or a warrior or already a magician, the flexibility aspect is very crucial for that sort of thing. And it would be better to start making decisions in your favor that are going to minimize the damage, or maybe turn it into some new opportunity. If there's a place you've been wanting to live in, or maybe you've been thinking about buying, then maybe